Hello everybody, today I am driving one of the original bad boys of the electric car scene, the Tesla Model S P85D. If, like me, you're not really that au fait with the Tesla lineup, allow me to tell you what makes this particular car quite so special. The Model S, as you're probably aware, was Tesla's first real mainstream model, not their first car, and of course not the first electric car. Like many great things in history, the Tesla has become synonymous with the electric car, like Hoover and the vacuum cleaner, but they didn't invent the concept. In fact, electric cars have been around for about as long as cars. The Model S was the first of Tesla's four-part sexy strategy. That's why they're called S, 3, X and Y, not called E, because I think Merck already had dibs on that. And the idea was to produce a lineup of cars which appealed to most American buyers. Although Tesla has become a best-selling car all around the world, they're still very much an American company at heart. Although, honourable mention must go to Norway, where currently Tesla are trialling the first uses of their supercharger network for non-Tesla cars, and Norway also holds the distinction of being the first country in the world to have an EV as its top-selling car. But for many people, it's things like this which really cemented the appeal of the Tesla. At a quick glance, it's a reasonably unremarkable four-door saloon hatch cross type thing. What made this car truly remarkable was the way it went down a road, because this dual motor equipped example, that's where the D in P85D comes from, has a total combined output of nearly 700 horsepower. And no matter how you cut it, that is a lot. And although it may not be the lightest thing, tipping the scales at well over 2 tons, the combination of instantaneous electric torque, plenty of it, and all-wheel drive meant that these things were savagely fast when you wanted to launch them. And that brought the electric car to the attention of an audience which previously couldn't have given a damn about it. The rest of the car's name comes from the 85 kilowatt-hour battery pack, of which most, although not all, is usable. That's normal for electric cars. And the P bit is possibly the most special. That means it's the performance variant. The Model 3 performance has gone on to become something of an instant classic, but it was the P85D that really started that whole thing. This car introduced the Insane Plus mode, predecessor to the fabled ludicrous setting that some of the later cars have. I'm currently, though, driving it in chill mode, and I've got to say, it is very chill. This is only the second time I've ever driven a Tesla, the previous being a Model 3 Performance, and that was a car that I really did like. Unfortunately, one of the bad things about Teslas is Tesla owners. They are one of the most opinionated, unwelcoming, somewhat aggressive bunch I have ever had the misfortune of dealing with online. But of course there are exceptions to the rule, and I'm sure plenty of them are really quite decent folk. But not all. Just to prove a point, I'm now going to say as many nice things as I can possibly think about Tesla, this car, and even Elon Musk. And then you'll be able to enjoy the comments section where I am still mercilessly ripped apart, possibly by many for the way that I look or the fact that I do quite like cake. And we shall just see how warm, welcoming and forgiving this lot are, shall we? So, let me begin. When this car came out, there was a lot that I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that it was unreasonably expensive. I can't remember the precise figure, but I'm sure I saw a Model S up for about 120 or 130,000 pounds. Proper Mercedes S-Class money. And I know that doesn't sound like a very good thing to start with, does it? No. But Tesla, you see, over time realised they could no longer charge quite as much money as that for their cars. So they reduced the price without, as far as I'm aware, stripping away any of the features. In fact, today's Model S now has a lot more than this 65 plate example. So that's a late 2014, early 2015 car. This was also, I'm told, a very, very good year for these cars because where the early ones were plagued with quite a few different issues, Tesla worked on them. They do seem to care about the quality or the perception of quality of their products, and so this car is just that little bit better put together, thought through and built than the earlier ones. There are lots of things in here which have been upgraded, so the whole infotainment system, originally not very good, not very responsive, rather laggy. However, for less than £2,000, the whole lot has been replaced with much more modern, nice feeling stuff. And I've got to say, originally I hated the whole massive iPad in the center thing. Everyone else has sort of copied that, and I've got to say it does kinda work in here. The ride quality is also very good indeed. This car is sat on the optional air suspension and I like it. This car is sitting on 19-inch wheels. Alex thought about going for the 21s, which look better, however that comes at the penalty of reduced range, and also those are known to be a little bit fragile. Alex has had this car now for just about 6 months, but in that time he's done 13,000 miles, and happily I can report that nothing has actually gone wrong with it. Tesla also sell an upgrade for the car's charger, which means you can now use CCS charging points rather than just the Type 2 the car was originally equipped with. This is all very good stuff because it means that Tesla are trying to do things to keep their older cars relevant as time goes by. Many other manufacturers would happily sit there and say, you know what, sod yous, you can just buy a new one if you don't like the things your old one is missing. I like this. I like the fact that Tesla are a massively disruptive company. It doesn't really matter what I actually think of the people or the product. The simple fact is they have forced the rest of the industry to really up their game. And whenever that happens in a business, you'll get a little bit of good and bad, but for the most part, I think it's really good because it's forcing all of the other manufacturers have all been somewhat complacent to look at what they're offering and ask if they could do a little bit more. Tesla have always seen themselves as more of a software company than a motor manufacturer, and that means they're not at all beholden to doing things in a certain way just because that's how we do them. And sure, there'll be plenty of times where that ends with a less than desirable result, but I do admire any company that's brave enough to really take chances, and Tesla certainly are. Releasing all of their patents, I think, was one of the boldest, most visionary steps I've ever seen a company make. And I have to say that for the most part, Tesla I really like because they don't try and force the whole save the planet thing down your throats. And I think this is wise from both a philosophical and business perspective. They instead of try to lure people into their cars, not with the whole be an eco-warrior bit, but instead with trying to persuade them they could make some cost savings by not having to spend on fuel, and also the incredible performance too. And the performance is rather good. I'm currently in sport mode, so I'm only in setting number 2 of 4. If I want to enjoy Insane Plus mode, which I really do, you have to get the car ready for it. What it does is heat the battery packs so they're prepared for the incredible draw, and this is a process that's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes, so I'll be able to experience it soon. In the interim though, I can enjoy Insane mode, and it is rather insane. These things are notorious for the way they'll just get off the line like nothing else. So in a moment, I suppose I should probably try that. The allure and importance of the supercharger network can also not be understated. People buying a Model S, we believe up until about 2017, also got free use of said supercharger network, which went an awful long way to offsetting the high purchase cost of the cars. Alright, the car tells me how to use launch mode, so we've got a short run here, bit of clear behind me, so it's safe to use. Got to hold my brake with the left foot, right foot down till it says launch mode enabled, down, it'll tell me launch mode ready, and foot off, and oh yeah, oh, yes, okay. I had a steak for lunch today, and I did that before we started filming. Tastes lovely. Although over the last few years I have experienced a few seriously quick cars, and they've probably diminished the wow factor of this just a little bit, there is no way you could describe this as anything other than devastatingly fast in a straight line. And as for Mr. Musk, he is certainly a character, and I do believe he genuinely wants to use his companies and the opportunities he's got to improve the lot of mankind. And it's somewhat difficult to not agree with the sentiment, even if you disagree with the methods. So then, that's just a few nice things to say about Tesla, Mr. Musk, and the Model S. There will be more throughout this video, I promise you, but now it's time to talk about whether it's actually still worth buying a 6-year-old example in 2021. Now, you can get a Model 3 Performance or any other number of electric cars. Does the Model S still have enough to make it worth going for? I would say yes, it does. But unsurprisingly, this is Tesla, there are quite a few things you probably should know about first. None of these really, for me, involve the electric car bit, because you've already made your mind up as to whether you want an EV or not. Now, there's some people out there for whom I'm sure they'd actually only be interested in buying a Tesla. A Taycan would mean nothing to them, and such is the star power the Tesla brand now has. But for everybody else, I would like to think if you would consider one of these, you might also consider something like a Kia EV6, so on and so forth. First up in the Tesla's favour, of course, is the fact that for the money, it does deliver absolutely stonking performance. Prices of the old Model S will vary, but if you wanted one just like this, expect to pay between £40,000 and £50,000 for it. This one is now sat on about 56,000 miles, and I know Alex paid in the low 40s for it a few months ago, but the market is such that it's probably worth more now than when he got it. There is also quite a lot of storage in it. You've got a very healthy sized frunk that for many people would probably be enough for them on its own, and the boot is absolutely cavernous. This is just as well, because storage inside is very limited. There are no bins in the doors, there is no storage in the center here. All you've got is this kind of carbon fiber ski slope down here and 2 fairly small drinks holders. Quite surprising for an American car, because you'd think they'd have a couple of dustbins here for the cokes you get out there. The interior also is what Tesla call premium, and compared to the Model 3, it's certainly a step up, but isn't going to wow anybody that was thinking of, say, a Mercedes S-Class or that kind of thing. You do have some nicer materials. This feels like Alcantara, and the leather is generally very good. These seats also excellent, really love them, quite supportive, quite sculpted, much better than expected. However, overall build quality is not that great. Panel gaps are all over the shop, there are pieces that protrude when they shouldn't, the door handles, I'm told, were also notorious for failing, and when they did, they are £1,000 a pop, and they would fail again, although Tesla have subsequently improved the part and also significantly reduced the price, so that's now something that shouldn't be as much of a concern. You also very much do need to be at peace with this whole system here. If you're into that kind of thing, it's going to be fantastic. But if you're not a very tech-savvy person, this is going to be a very intimidating car to be in. It's not scary or difficult to drive at all. In fact, in many ways, it's probably one of the easiest cars to drive you might ever encounter. Turning circles reasonable. The controls are not overly sensitive. I'm in insane plus mode at the moment, and I have absolute precision over what I'm getting from the car. Brakes are decent too, and another real plus point for the Tesla. When this car was acquired, the discs and pads were both hardly worn, and this car could do 100,000 miles before either of them need any sort of attention. In fact, with Tesla, the whole idea of servicing as a traditional car really does go out the window. The car will tell you when it needs things, and that, I think, is genius. In fact, I kind of wonder why so many other manufacturers still insist on getting you to service the electric cars like you did a regular combustion engined one. As far as I'm concerned, all you should really need is basic checks that the car is okay, and then make sure the tyres and brakes are in good condition. And most of this stuff could be done as part of an MOT, so why you would need to take these cars regularly to a garage, I'm not quite sure. And for people like myself and Alex, the ability to use the supercharger network really was a deal maker for this car, because he does enough miles far enough away from home that he needs to be able to charge when he's out and about on a fairly regular basis. And there were a lot of rumours a few years ago that if you did use the supercharger frequently with your car, that you would suffer for it. It wouldn't charge quite as quickly, or you might even suffer reduced battery capacity. And that does seem to have rung true. Whilst this car can still achieve a peak charge of over 100 kilowatts, that's some way short of what the new breed of electric cars can do, and maybe some way short of what the car was once capable of. For a short while, Alex had a P90, one of this car's successors, as a courtesy car, and he noticed that when he took that to charge, it would take electricity about 50% quicker than this, and that can make a difference if you're doing big miles. A lot has also been made of recent times, and there's one particular piece doing the rounds at the moment, which basically says that all electric car motors after 10 years are paperweights. I will quite happily say, as somebody who has previously daily driven a V12, that is hogwash. First off, there aren't enough electric cars of a certain age out there to get much accurate data. But when I have encountered cars that are that old, the battery packs have generally been fairly healthy. Like most of these things, it's always the horror stories that will get the attention, but actually they seem to have lasted fairly well. I hadn't even until today noticed that the buttons and stalks in this car were actually also Mercedes derived. So they feel quite nice, but it is rather odd looking down and seeing what you would have found in an E-Class from about 10 years ago. The steering wheel has all the controls that you would need. You can do the basic stuff like volume and all that sort of stuff, and you can even, through this scroll wheel here, change temperature, fan speed, even open the sunroof. And that's one of those small little things that I think Tesla are really clever for having done. Unfortunately, there are also some things they missed out. One I'm told that a lot of owners really want is the ability to put waypoints in the sat-nav, because at present, you can't actually do that. So evidently the people who were supposed to do that spent all their time getting it to make fart noises instead, or look like a DeLorean on the map, or something stupid like that. That's a Tesla thing, isn't it? I can believe that would be a Tesla thing. Also, Insane Plus mode is now ready. So while I've still got battery charge and cameras still attached to the car, let's give that a whirl, as we've got a bit of row where we can safely use it. Let's do launch, foot properly down, right, and launch mode enabled. Wow, cripes. That's 60. The official 0 to 60 time of this car, by the way, is just over 3 seconds, and I absolutely believe it. What I don't believe or like is the Plaids, the new triple motor 1000 horsepower ones, claim of a 1.99 second 0 to 60. This is one of those areas where I disagree with Tesla, because they've evidently decided they want their car now to do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. 3's just too slow. That's 2015. They need to do it in 2 seconds. But the only way you'll ever get one of those cars to do that in 2 seconds is if you're on a prepped drag surface going in the correct direction. That's very important for drag racing stuff. And the car is at the right temperature, the air is at the right temperature, the track is at the right temperature, you've got the right tyres, and everything is all aligned. And even then, you subtract a 1 foot rollout. This is a very popular American thing where they don't actually start counting the time until the car's moved a foot, which to me just seems a bit bizarre. Surely that's a really, really key part of doing a drag race. That's the whole point, is how quick can you get off the line. And if you're going to subtract a whole foot's worth of movement, that's a lot. Just seems a bit odd to me. That, to me, is the kind of automotive bull droppings up there with dry weights. Because if we're going to start doing that, I'll tell everybody that I can run 100 yards in 5 seconds. I just don't count the first 90 yards because they don't really exist, apparently. If you are looking at buying one of these and you do need the free supercharging bit, do exercise caution and make sure you buy one that actually still has it. Apparently, some cars that were supplied with it from new, if they get resold by Tesla themselves, quite often that functionality kind of gets erased, and that, I think, is a little bit naughty. The car can certainly go around a bend as well, there's absolutely no doubting that. And I've got to say, overall ride quality, I'm actually quite impressed with. Brakes, poor though. The brakes themselves actually are probably not to blame, but it's the tyres, because you could tell the ABS was kicking in and the car was really struggling. We weren't in any particular danger, but This is something you're just going to have to bear in mind. Yes, it's a big old bus and it may defy physics, but every now and again physics will fight back. There are also an unfortunately large number of creaks, rattles and things in here. Quite a few bits of this are not put together anywhere near as well as you would hope. Once you've gotten to motorway speeds, that initial response the car has does seem to be a little bit blunted. It's there where something like the modern Taycan really would take off. Genuine real-world range is in excess of 200 miles, between 210 and 230 seems a good average, but Alex once did achieve 270 miles on a journey, while he was able to do about 60 for the most part. Overall, I quite enjoy this car. It's certainly devastatingly fast in a straight line, but fails to excite in the bends in the way that, say, a Maserati or something like that does. However, for many people buying, I don't think that's really going to be much of an issue. I could say the same thing about many a 5 Series. If you can bag one of these that's still got the free charging ability, that is really worthwhile having. And if it's a car that works for you, it should be a pretty good purchase. Even now, this is something I consider suggesting to people who are looking at buying, say, a brand new EV. And whether I liked it or not, you can't deny that this is a real automotive legend. This was an incredibly important car in the development of really the car in general. And even though there may not be a space on my driveway for a Tesla at present, I will always have a lot of respect for the company, and most importantly, the Model S, because they tried something, and I gotta say, they really succeeded. Anyway, that's enough from me. Please like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you all for the next one. Bye-bye.